Our next speaker is Jon Q. Q is a principal designer at Automatic. He designs and codes, and he specializes in design systems, interactions, and user interfaces. Learn how you can design and build your blocks in Storybook in order to rapidly prototype your ideas with this quick tutorial. Over to you, Q.
Hello everyone! So cool to be here with all of you wonderful people. My name is Q and I am a principal designer at Automatic, and today I'm going to be talking about Storybook. Oh boy, do I love Storybook. I've been doing this UI stuff for years, and oh my goodness, I have not seen or experienced any other tool like this one in my entire career. Not only does Storybook have a wonderfully charming name, a thriving and ever-growing community, but also the tool itself is game-changing. Storybook is a dedicated UI development environment designed to help you craft the best UI experiences for your application. These high-quality UI components often exist as part of a component library, a UI framework, or a design system. Having solid, thoughtfully crafted components are essential in helping your application feel solid and consistent. They're also important for your application's interactions and experiences to evolve and flourish. So, why a dedicated UI environment? If you think about popular UI libraries out there, like Bootstrap or Material, these libraries are part of the foundations for many websites and web apps, and for good reason. They solve many UI challenges, allowing you to focus on other priorities. These libraries are complete packages that are brought into your project. But how were they created in the first place? Well, they were created in their own environments, custom tailored specifically for their UI design and development workflows. Within Gutenberg, we have UI components that exist as part of the WordPress components package. Over the years, WordPress Gutenberg has evolved into a wonderfully diverse but mostly JavaScript-powered project. Taking a look inside, there are many different packages responsible for many things, from data management to block registration and even command line tools. All of these packages working together in unison to construct the block-based editor experience for WordPress that we all know and love. One of the trickier parts to work with within Gutenberg is the UI layer. Traditionally, when we create web UI, we would do so within the application itself, page by page, section by section, bit by bit. Over time, as your application gets more complicated, it gets more difficult to curate, craft, and manage all of those interfaces. Bugs start popping up, regressions start happening, and soon, fixing one UI bug results in 10 more bugs down the line. The ideal UI crafting workflow would actually be the inverse of what we're all used to. We would focus on the components first, make sure they're solid, and start building from there. This component-first strategy is key, and Storybook is a tool designed specifically to support this approach. Imagine for a moment you wanted to build a dining table for your home. Now, I'm not talking about assembling a pre-made table like what you can get from IKEA. I'm talking about a real table, a handmade table, made with real wood you got from Home Depot, put together with tools like a saw. Now, it's highly impractical for you to build this in your kitchen or living room. Not impossible, just impractical and messy. Ideally, you would build your table in a shed, garage, or wood shop of some kind, somewhere with space, tools, and ventilation. An area that enables you to make a mess and experiment without breaking anything in your kitchen. And when your custom handmade dining table is completed, you can then bring it into your home and set it in place. The very same principles applies to UI and applications. Storybook is that dedicated environment. It's that space specifically designed for you to craft your application buttons, drop-downs, inputs, tooltips, modals, cards, date pickers, and much more. Once completed, we would then work on combining these pieces together, testing and accounting for all of the interaction nuances and style variations along the way, composing them together to create larger and larger pieces that we can then more confidently integrate within our apps. A perfect example of this concept is, well, Gutenberg itself with blocks. You can use blocks to create other blocks, and you can compose blocks together, customize them, do all of it in your editor, and when you hit publish, you'll have a super custom WordPress post created through the magic of block composition. How Storybook helps us here is that it provides us with a separate dedicated development environment. Without this space, it makes it difficult to think about and work with all of these use cases within the main application. For example, let's say we're working on updating a tooltip within Gutenberg. Well, in order for us to even see the tooltip, we have to interact with it. Imagine the grind of having to write some code, save, reload, click on several things just to see the tooltip, and then upon inspecting it, only to have it vanish. Well, yes, you can hack some code in to force it to stay open, or you can have it render immediately upon load without having to click anything. But then you'd have to remember to remove it afterwards, hopefully. I've been there, and there's bad feels every time. Alternatively, what if we could just see our tooltip just by itself in complete isolation, and your saved changes automatically live reloads the tooltips, and why not, you can force the tooltip to go into a particular state, like open. This focused workflow greatly increases productivity and allows you to ensure that the UI is as good as it can be. In addition to states, UI components can have many variations. Let's take everyone's favorite go-to user interface example, the Humble button. A button can exist in many states and with many variations, ranging from different sizes to different colors and even different combinations. When crafting a button, there are so many considerations you have to make. How does a primary button look? What about a small primary button? What about a small primary button with an icon in it? What about a small primary button with an icon in it that happens to be disabled? You kind of get the idea. A dedicated environment like Storybook provides you with a sandbox, a place to create and stress test your components in various states and scenarios. A place to perhaps experiment and even prototype. A place to ensure that your component solidly works as expected. And hey, when it's solid here, that means it'll be solid everywhere. Okay, time for a live-ish kind of demo. To get started with Gutenberg's Storybook environment, make sure you have all of the dependencies installed. You can do this by running npm install in your terminal. When you are done, run the command npm run storybook:dev. Now, a bunch of things will scroll by in your terminal. This is normal. When it's ready, it will launch Storybook in your default browser. The left menu is our collection of stories, and on the right side is the canvas where our components are rendered. Let's take a look at our range control component. I chose this component specifically because it's a newer one that was developed entirely in Storybook. We can play with the rendered range control in the canvas, drag things around, poke at it. Not only that, there are controls that enable us to modify the behavior of our range control, like how does it work when it needs to render in right to left scenarios, or what if the range controller needs to render marks. As you can imagine, these are incredibly useful for testing the variety of states and configurations for a given component. Storybook also extends beyond just components. We've managed to render a large portion of the editor entirely within Storybook. Furthermore, it can also serve as a platform for component documentation. As of this moment, we haven't actively explored these areas of Storybook yet, but we certainly hope to do so in the near future. I could go on and on about the benefits of component first strategy, UI workflows, and design systems. If you're ever curious, please feel free to reach out to me. For now, hopefully I've shared enough today to demonstrate the wonderful advantages of having a dedicated UI development environment, and how that environment can complement, accelerate, and improve the UI quality and experiences within your project. With all this being said, Storybook is still a very new thing within the context of Gutenberg. It was added to the project late last year in 2019. Since then, we've had a lot of contributions. adding stories that showcase basic live rendered examples of our component set. We've also leveraged Storybook to develop more complex and refined interactions within our components. There's lots of opportunities for us to craft, explore, and refine not just the components, but entire workflows and processes for how we create user interfaces within Gutenberg. And if you're interested, you're more than welcome to come along for the ride and help us write some stories together. Thank you all so much for your time today. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Stay safe out there.